Hi fellow investors, AMD stock price had a breakdown shortly after releasing the Q2 earnings. And the share price since then has cooled down a little bit after hitting the 52 weeks high. If you follow the company, Xilinx acquisition is still pending the approval from China. Semiconductor wafer shortage continue to affect the industry, and most recently, Intel is reportedly lowering prices for its server CPU to take back the data center operators who have switched to AMD. Other than that, AMD revenue growth is expected to slow down in the coming years due to the tough year-over-year comparison. Does this mean that there will be limited upside if you invest in AMD? Is AMD still a good buy for long-term investor? In this video, we'll discuss AMD growth opportunities and risks in order to help answer that questions. AMD has had a phenomenal growth. It is expected to grow 60% for the full year with an improving gross margin of 48% in the last quarter. They also reported a very healthy balance sheet with 2.6 billion in cash and 1.17 billion in short investment and very low debt of just 313 million. This growth has been driven by Amd Products Portfolio. They launched several products in 2020 based on the 7nm technology, including Ryzen for desktop, Radeon for gaming, and more EPYC processor series dedicated for data centers. Higher demand for consumer electronics and gaming products boosted by the pandemics combined with the new product launches resulted in record earnings in the last few quarters. They certainly make a tough year-over-year comparison when considering the revenue growth in the next few years. Analysts projected below 20% revenue growth for the next 3 years, as you can see in the table here. This doesn't take into account Xilinx acquisition, and as you can see here, there's a wide range of revenue estimate. We have some unknowns on how a few things could play out in the next few years, including the ongoing chip shortage and the competitive landscape in the industry. It's worth mentioning that AMD is a fabless company, and that means that AMD designed the chips, but it's manufactured by other company, in this case Taiwan Semiconductor. Taiwan Semiconductor recently announced a price increase of up to 20% related to the wafer shortage. So wafer or substrate is a thin slice of semiconductor used for fabrication of chip. The price hike won't be as bad as reportedly it's only 5% for preferred customer like AMD. Nevertheless, the next quarter earning would be interesting to see if this has any impact to AMD gross profit margin, because in theory they could just pass on this cost to their customers. Talking about future revenue growth estimate, in the next few years, high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, and gaming are set to grow. AMD has plenty of growth opportunities here as they have a competitive product portfolio. Their market share in various areas is smaller but consistently growing. As you can see from the AMD presentation here, they have a large and growing total addressable market. AMD has continued to capture significant CPU market share from Intel for PCs and server CPUs. For gaming, AMD focuses on CPU and GPU semi-custom processor applications, resulting in their usage in gaming consoles like Xbox and PlayStation. One area that would probably won't grow as much is discrete GPU, which is heavily dominated by NVIDIA, although AMD still has a small market share here. Instead, we would likely see more growth in the data center segment, which has grown to 20% of AMD revenue in the last quarter. It also has a better profit margin when compared to other segments. You may have heard the rumor that Intel may offer competitive prices in an attempt to maintain their leadership in this area. I'm not necessarily worried by this. For data center, price is not more important compared to performance and energy efficiency, and in these criteria, AMD products are currently the leader. I would expect AMD to continue growing market share unless Intel or others come up with a better product. Intel is a much bigger company with more resources compared to AMD, so I wouldn't count them out. In July, Intel unveiled a new architecture roadmap in a bid to retake its chip-making crown in 2025. In my opinion, it would take a few years before we would see the result. They plan to build their own foundry, and as you know, building a foundry is expensive and it would take a few years before it is operational. In the meantime, AMD could continue to further their competitive edge by focusing on improving their chip design and having them manufactured by TSM. the current leader in chip manufacturing technologies and processes. The Xilinx acquisitions to strengthen AMD's data center and artificial intelligence business. AMD agreed to acquire Xilinx in an all-stock transaction where Xilinx shareholders would receive 1.7234 of AMD stock. Xilinx is the leader in field programmable array FPGA chips, which can be used for a wide variety of applications. It's also a strong company financially, and combined they would improve AMD growth prospect and profitability. So the acquisition has been approved by the US and EU antitrust, but it's still pending for the approval from China. Xilinx share price as of the deal is still trading at a discount due to the approval risk. The discount has become smaller recently as some investors perceive the risk to be lower with China approval of Maxim acquisition by Analog Devices in August. Although AMD would be fine without Xilinx, I'm still optimistic that the deal would go through and we would most likely see positive market reaction when that happens. Some investors have been buying Xilinx shares in order to get AMD at a discount with the risk that the price would drop if the deal doesn't go through. In my opinion, this is a viable strategy as Xilinx by itself is also an investable company. One thing that I would advise to make sure that you are aware of what happens after the merger. As far as I know, a few stockbrokers in Europe like eToro or Trading212 would liquidate the position of the acquired company instead of converting the share based on past experience. In this case, it's often better to sell the share of the acquired company before the delisting. Anyway, back to the topic, the risk of investing in AMD is relatively well known. The competition from Intel, which has more resources, and the potential acquisition of Xilinx that could still fall through. Other than that, investors should follow the ongoing supply chain constraint affecting the industry and the potential impact from geopolitical change. In my opinion, the potential reward outweighs the risk for long-term investors. AMD is in a good position to capture the growing trend in high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, and gaming. Their product roadmap would help them to remain competitive. The other thing that I like is the trust in the management leadership to navigate the companies through any of the possible risks. The current CEO, Lisa Su, has turned around this company from the brink of bankruptcy when she took the position in 2014. The share price back then was $4, and since then it's up more than 25 times. She also has a very high approval ratings from employees based on Glassdoor company ratings. I personally invested in a basket of a few semiconductors winners, and AMD has become one of the largest positions. I'm also a shareholder of Xilinx, although a much smaller position. If you don't have it yet, I think the current share price of AMD 103 as of the time of the recording is a good entry point to start a position for a long-term investor. To add into existing position, I would wait for a further drop. My 1-year target price for AMD is $150. But the thing about price target and revenue estimate, different analysts would use different assumptions on how things would play out. So this is just personal opinion of a random stranger on YouTube. So please make sure you do your own research before making any investment decision. If you're interested in other semiconductor winners, check out these videos and good luck with your investments.